Y'all know I got this. I believe I know the answer.
Who do you think will win? Who will become valedictorian?
Hi everyone. A number of people have asked me to make a video explaining why I wrote The Code Switch. And first I want to say that The Code Switch was co-authored, and my co-author was Yvetta Dahl Franklin for that particular book. We both had different perspectives on why we wanted to write the book. She had a perspective for why she wanted to join me in writing the book. And of course, I had my own perspective on wanting to write the book and asking her to collaborate with me. So today, what I want to do is share with you the impetus for writing that book. And for me, it was all about language. Because I feel that when people speak informally or slang or speak colloquially, that oftentimes they are deemed to be less intelligent. And that is not necessarily the case. In fact, I don't believe it is the case at all. And so I wanted to write a book where there would be two very smart girls, but one who would speak more formally, speaking standard English, and the other to speak informally, speaking more colloquially, like you might speak with your family. And so back to The Code Switch, that's what really prompted me, because I feel like there's so many words in the English language that we have changed the meaning or added a new meaning to an existing word. And when we've been using that new definition of an existing word that ultimately becomes part of standard English, those often are that were once ridiculed for not speaking formally. Later, that term that may be used for a particular word becomes standard. And so that was what really prompted me to want to write The Code Switch. And I'm thankful that I had a partner who wanted to collaborate with me to write the story, and we had fun doing it. And so when you read The Code Switch, all of the slang or informal language is underlined, and it's dialogue between two best friends. And when the one who speaks more formally speaks, she's actually almost correcting, in a way, the one who speaks informally. So for instance, I'll give you an example. If the one who speaks informally says, "Ooh, I want some mo," then the one who speaks formally would say, "Yes, I would like some more as well." So they're both saying the same thing, but they're just articulating it in a different way. Today I learned from my son that the word bruh, B-R-U-H, is now in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, also on dictionary.com. So a word that was formerly considered slang or improper English and probably frowned upon by some is now in the dictionary, and that basically I would say qualifies the word to no longer be considered a slang word, because it's not in the slang dictionary, it's in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. And that's a word, and also, by the way, when I looked it up, they did credit African Americans for using that word, and that word was used, I think, as early as the late 1800s, it said. So that was surprising to me, because I know my family members have used bruh for a long time, and I've heard it in the community, like, "Hey, how you doing, bruh?" But I never knew that that word had been around since the 1800s. But that kind of leads me to why, or I shouldn't say that leads me to it, but that is actually a really good example of why it was important for me to write The Code Switch, because I've always felt that words that my culture have basically changed the definition of. I'm not saying that the word didn't already exist exist. There are a lot of words that are already in existence, but in my circles and in my culture, I know that a lot of words in the English language were given new definitions, and those definitions were considered slang, right? Because we weren't using the words in the traditional way. And now that's a really good example, because bruh was really an abbreviation for brother, but it wasn't bro. It's not like, hey, how you doing, bro? Bro is actually looking at how the word is spelled. Bruh is actually hearing it phonetically. So that, to me, is a really great example of why I think The Code Switch is such an important book to read. In The Code Switch, there are two best friends, Keisha and Lavender. One speaks colloquially, informally. She's cool. She's more hip, you might say. So very smart, but she likes to speak informally. Her preference is not to speak standard English. Her preference is to speak informally. Whereas Lavender's preference is to speak formally. So what you'll find in the story is that all of the slang or informal language is underlined, and each time the language used by Lavender is standard, it's in bold. And so I'm going to give you an example of how it works. So for instance, if Keisha said to Lavender, ooh, I'm going to sell some more cookies, right? This is an example. Then Lavender would say, yes, I plan to sell some more cookies as well. They're both saying the same thing, but they're just saying it differently. And that is a story where the reader's just reading along, but as they're reading, they're actually seeing a lot of slang words, and then they're seeing the response to the comment in standard English. And whenever it's standard English, it will be in bold. Here's another example. If Keisha were to say, ooh, I sure appreciate you, right? Then Lavender might say, I appreciate you too. So again, they're both saying the same thing, they're just saying it a little differently. And I encourage you to pick up the book because it's a great story. But not only does it have the two girls as main characters, but there's a whole section with other classmates, and there's a food component as well, where they make a decision on whether or not they want to continue to have junk food snacks for a school dance, or if they're making plans to change the menu and go with foods that are more healthier food choices. So in conclusion, I would say that the most important thing to recognize when reading The Code Switch is that it is important to know how to switch and when to switch. Because if you are going for a job interview, or if you are speaking to an adult and you're a child, you want to know when to defer, when to show deference, when to know how to switch your language appropriately depending on who the audience is. And I believe that Yvette and I have created a book that, a story I should say, that definitely is a good, enjoyable read. And while you're reading, you're kind of picking up cues, because you're seeing these words that are underlined, and then you're seeing some words that are bolded as you're reading the story, and hopefully you're picking up the importance of knowing how to switch, so that throughout the story, if there is any slang used and someone's unfamiliar with that slang, they certainly can just turn the page and look it up right there in the book. No need to have to go to the dictionary or the slang dictionary for it. So anyway, that kind of concludes my impetus for writing The Code Switch. Thank you for listening. Lastly, I would add that the code switch is a whodunit story, but it's not really whodunit, it's who wins. The two girls are competing for valedictorian, and you won't know who wins until you read the story and you find out at the end who was selected for valedictorian. But like I said, they're both smart girls. All right, thank you.
Y'all know I got this. I believe I know the answer.
Who do you think will win? Who will become valedictorian?